David, welcome to the Keto Camp podcast, all the way from Australia. I'm here in Miami. You are a day ahead of me. You told me the future looks bright. How are you? How are you feeling today, my friend?
Yeah, amazing, Ben. So good to be with you. And yeah, the future is bright, as I just mentioned. Just had a nice walk along the beach. The sun came up about an hour and a half ago. So yeah, nice to be connecting with you on the 1st of March.
Yeah, nice to connect with you, even though it's still February for me, but it's about to be the first of March with you. Um, I discovered you through Erin Smith, who's a mutual friend of ours. Love Erin. She's just like the ultimate connector. She has this gift of saying, I believe you two need to meet each other. And that's what she did for us. And I started using your product, Manna, which is a high quality shilajit. We'll talk about all of that and my experiences with it. But before we get to all of that, I want to know your backstory. I want my audience to get familiar with your backstory and what were the steps that took you towards this path of having this company Manna, but also studying shilajit and sourcing it. So what's the backstory, David?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I guess the backstory for me was really a deeper pursuit of finding the truth.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is I kind of had these questions that had been inside of me for as long as I can remember that were really like, what are we doing here? Where do we come from? And who am I? So,
Those are some deep
uh,
questions, bro.
some deep questions, but it got to a point, Ben, where it actually just didn't make sense to me any longer to not ask myself who I am. Like to exist on this planet at the time, I'd exist on this planet for 33 years. And I'd had that question ringing for as long as I could remember, but I hadn't actually taken the time out to truly have like a deep look. And so it was that pursuit that instinctively led me to a whole bunch of incredible places on the planet that I now know as sacred and special sites, like the Himalayas or the Dead Sea or Machu Picchu or the pyramids in Egypt. And along that journey, I was meeting with indigenous people who were talking about these sacred substances, these micronutrients that were, making them more resilient or making them stronger or healing animals or in some cases, like in Egypt, like allowing them to commune with the gods or elevate their consciousness. And so the substances they're also calling, like, the fountain of youth or the elixir of life, or in Shilajit's case, like the destroyer of weakness or the
Mm.
blood of the mountain, these really kind of elaborate terms that were pointing at something very special. And, these substances have been used for thousands of years and have been pivotal in so many ways. And so that kind of sent me on a deep inquiry into what are these substances and why are they held so sacred and so special to so many in these areas. And they're written about a lot in different texts as well. I know in Egypt, as an example, there's hieroglyphs talking about like Mufkat and Manna and Ormus. So the two substances that really stood out to me after kind of traveling around for several years in these places all around the world was Shilajit, which comes from the highest place on the earth and is this black resin that's incredible. And I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. And then Ormus, which is, we get it from the bottom of the earth and it's sea-based and it's white. And so once I discovered that those were the two substances that were having the most profound impact that I could that came to me, it was really a matter of then finding, okay, what's the best version of these substances? What's the best practices to use for these substances? And then with Mana, we've actually combined the two together for the first time ever, which we can get into. But that's kind of the backstory of how it came together. It was super instinctive, and it wasn't a pursuit set out to create a product. It was more for like a self-inquiry journey.
That's usually the best way. That's interesting. So you went to all these interesting, beautiful places, and some of the commonalities is that they were using these ancient, what did you call the Shilajit, the destroyer of weakness, blood of the mountain. I mean, these are powerful terms. And Shilajit was one of those substances, these ancient compounds that you used and you discovered they were using at these places for amazing results. I'm curious, the first time you tried it, what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was for Shilajit in particular, it was disgusting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
that's the first thing I remember because, you know, it's Ben, it's the most concentrated micronutrients I've still ever found on the planet. There's so much
Wow.
packed into like 1,000 milligrams of Shilajit. One way I explain it, it's like a swimming pool full of nutrients that gets concentrated down into like a teaspoon
Huh.
from the plant world. So the concentration of it, like the amount of amino acids, the amount of vitamin Bs, minerals, fulvic acid, triterpenes, enzymes, all of those things that are so concentrated into it, it has the most extreme, like earthy taste. And that was my first experience with it in the high mountains in Tibet. Actually, I was given
Wow.
like a pea size amount of it that I stuck in my mouth, and I was just like, "Whoa, what is this?" And then, yeah, because it's a biogenetic stimulant, you do kind of get like an increase in energy and an increase in brain performance. So I definitely remember feeling stimulated from the experience. Uh, and that, yeah, after that, it was kind of, where do I get that? How do I get more?
Yeah. Same thought process I would have had, right? Let's dive into Shilajit. I think I mean, I might be wrong, but if I asked 100 people here in the United States, what is Shilajit? They'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. So can you explain, give us a lowdown on what exactly, I mean, you showed a little bit already, but what exactly is it? What is it going to do in the body? You mentioned it has fulvic compounds and I believe it also has humic acid in it as well. So share everything. Let's make it a masterclass on Shilajit here.
Yeah, so it's been known in the East for thousands of years. Practitioners have used it to treat all kinds of things in the body, and it's still used like in the Himalayas, as an example, or in Nepal. It's prescribed by doctors, so it's considered medicine. And I really see it now as like fertilizer for the blood.
Mm.
It's got so many micronutrients packed into to like 1,000 milligrams of it, that it's giving the body back everything from a micronutrient perspective that's no longer in a lot of our food because it's no longer in a lot of our soil anymore. So it's like this nutrient and energetic boost for the blood. And as we know, the blood is really the carrier that then allows nutrients to get into the interstitium, the intercellular fluid. It's also traveling around the body and healing any injuries and fixing things. So if our blood is compromised and doesn't have either the energetic or nutritional properties that it requires, then our body's going to be compromised in some way. So we're really giving that blood, that activator and that healer in the body back all of its like full vitality so that it can actually make the body vital again. And so the benefits of Shilajit are so far spread because of what it's doing to the blood. So we get like fertility is a huge one. We get people coming back to us that have been trying to get pregnant for years, and they've both taken Manna for a month and they're pregnant, which
Wow.
to us is no surprise, right? It sends people's testosterone levels through the roof. My co-founder, Brad McDonnell's, he took Shilajit on its own for 3 months a couple of years ago, and he doubled his testosterone level in that time.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it's incredible for energy, brain performance. There's clinical studies on it being used as a nootropic. There's clinical studies on like sperm count, testosterone, heart health, blood health, allowing cells to live longer. So it really is like this supreme nutrient and grand catalyst for the body to not only survive but thrive. And something else worth mentioning quickly, actually, too, is there's a clinical study that was done a couple of years ago on its antiviral properties and its resilience to the body. So, with the period we've been through recently, that's also really powerful. And that's why I believe Shilajit's kind of expanded exponentially through the West over the last few years. To your point, still a lot of people haven't heard of it, but a lot more have than say would have, in 2020 as an example. So it's expanding exponentially. There's heaps of it. A lot of people also get worried that it's going to run out because it's from these very high mountain tops.
Yeah.
But it does. The Himalayan mountains are massive. It's also found like throughout Kashmir, throughout Mongolia, and then up through Russia, Siberia. So those mountain ranges are like equivalent of going from LA to New York and back. Like they're big land masses.
So there's plenty for us, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
don't have to be worried about it. That's super interesting. What happened with Brad with the testosterone, doubled in 3 months of taking it, and then the immune system. It's funny because I was using Manna, right? You had sent me I think 30-day supply, and I was putting it in my coffee. Really enjoying it, by the way. I love the way I felt with it. I had great energy levels with it, but I ran out, right? And then I got sick 2 weeks later. So maybe if I would have kept taking it, I wouldn't have gotten sick. So I could kind of end of one experiment saying I stopped taking it. I ended up getting sick 2 weeks later. One of the things I love about Shilajit is the fulvic acids that it has, and fulvic acids have many benefits. I think one of my favorite benefits of fulvic minerals and humic minerals, of course, what it does for cell metabolism, but glyphosate is a big issue here in the United States. Huge issue, unfortunately. And fulvics and humics actually help the body remove it from the body, remove glyphosate from the body. And one of the things I was researching that I heard you say, and I want you to share more about this, is that most Shilajit have about 7 to 21% of these fulvic acids, but the Manna has up to about 88%, which is incredibly higher than most of them out there. And why is that? How come yours has so much more?
Yeah, it's the location that we get it from. So what we've found from exploring Shilajit over the years is the higher altitude that you get it from. It's obviously much harder to get it. It's much more expensive to get it, but the nutrient content is much more concentrated. And any of the nasties that are in some of the lower altitude Shilajits also don't exist. So it's almost like nature has this natural alchemical way of giving you more concentrated nutrients and a better filtration of the nasties the higher it goes.
Mm.
And so, I kind of set myself a goal back in 2017, 2018 to find like the 20 best Shilajit suppliers on the planet. I was initially introduced to it at Mount Kalish, but the supply there was limited. So I knew if we're going to take this out to the world, we needed to find the best supplies we could and make sure we could scale it. And after testing all the different Shilajits in laboratory, there's a vast difference. Not all Shilajits are the same. And definitely the lower altitude ones have a lot less nutrient concentration in them. And in particular, fulvic acid is a really good marker.
Do you think, David, that the fact that the higher the elevation, the more stressful the environment, and the stress helps to produce a better compound here?
I absolutely do, yeah. So heard me mention before that Shilajit's like a biogenetic stimulant. And I believe why it has those properties is because when plants are subjected to extreme environmental conditions like heat or pressure or cold, like the plants in the high Himalayan mountains, they develop natural protective compounds. And when those protective compounds are extracted and consumed by humans, we get to take on those qualities. So, yeah, I do believe that because it's from those super high altitudes, the plants develop their own protective qualities.
Yeah, I believe it.
Absolutely.
Hormesis,
Yeah.
stress for the win, especially with, our food, but also stress in the body is also a good thing if you adapt to it. One of the things that I heard you talk about with Josh Trent was the pheromones. Share some. That was so fascinating to me. And if I was like a 21-year-old man listening to that conversation, I'd be like, man, get me some Shilajit right now. I want to change my pheromones. And share a little bit more about some of the things you've heard and seen with pheromones after taking your Manna product.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme actually, Ben. Like some of my friends and colleagues that have taken Shilajit uh, and taken Manna, and let's say they might take 3 sachets of Manna for a few weeks, where they're getting ready for like an extreme sporting event or whatever it might be. But yeah, there's like multiple reports of it's kind of putting out those pheromones and attracting in the opposite sex for sure. I mean, throughout like Pakistan and Nepal, Shilajit's also known as natural Viagra.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So if you're taking kind of like 2 or 3 sachets of mana a day, you will notice significant differences in your body and also like out in the world. So yeah, I'll probably just leave it at that. But you've had a lot of feedback come back, and as I said, a really beautiful component to that is the body functioning much more optimally than it is without those micronutrients. And the resultant of that is, people that have been trying to get pregnant getting pregnant, which is it's beautiful feedback for us to in this that it's contributing to starting life, right?
That is super cool. Yeah, I might experiment with doing 3 a day and see what happens with my
Yeah,
fiance. See if my fiance changes her tone with me, and like meaning like she starts getting more attractive to me, and sitting on the couch next to me. I'm gonna pay attention to that when I start doing 3 a day. I'll do a little experiment. Um, what?
I just about guarantee you will notice a difference.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's powerful. Okay. All right. I'll give you some feedback there. Is there much information on what Shilajit can do for the mitochondria? I mean, we know that it helps overall cellular function and blood flow, and but what about the mitochondria? There's anything on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So mitochondria, ATP production, it's there's actually a clinical study on that as well. So, and we've got one of my business partners, Dr. Beth McDougall. She talks a lot about she's super passionate about mitochondria and ATP as like the holy grail
Yeah.
of longevity. And so she talks a lot about mana and the benefits for longevity. Um, and yeah, it's really, again, because it's getting all of the fluids in the body firing, and we're 99% water by molecular count. So we're basically giving those fluids back all of the micronutrients and the electrical charge. So a lot of people realize like we're water sacs now, but we're actually saltwater sacs. So it's so important we have that conductivity. It's so important we have the minerals. And so the other component that's in mana is the ocean plasma and the ormus. And that's really like the most concentrated natural electrolytes that we can find on the planet. And so that's firing up the mitochondria and the ATP as well, because it's all that intercellular functioning with your sodium, your potassium, and all of those other micronutrients. So combining that, the strongest, like most concentrated nutrients from the ocean with the most concentrated nutrients from the plant world, the combination of the two really refertilizes, remineralizes, and recharges all of our fluids, whether it's the blood, the interstitial fluid, or the intercellular fluid. All of those fluids kind of come back online, if you will. And that's why we use the tagline at Mana, like turning you on, because we're literally turning the electrical system back on. And we are electrical circuits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know much about Ormus. I'd love to learn more. You said it's sea based. It's white. You just mentioned it helps with mitochondrial function, but I'd love to learn more about Ormus and just where you source that from, but also more of its function inside of the body.
Yeah, Ormus is amazing. Like one of my mentors, Barry Carter, he actually explained it as the greatest scientific discovery of our time. It's written about a lot in sacred text, even in the Bible. It's called Manna. But in Egypt, it was called Mufkat. There's a lot of hieroglyphs on it. And there's multiple ways to produce it. The 3 ways that I was given to produce it is from ocean plasma from the sea, ocean plasma from the Dead Sea, and both of those substances are totally different source materials, and then from gold. So at Mana, we produce it from those 3 different sources.
You say
The
gold?
gold version, Gold, pure gold.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Uh, the version that is in Manna is from Dead Sea ocean plasma. And the power of Dead Sea ocean plasma compared to normal ocean plasma is 95% sodium chloride, whereas the Dead Sea is really high in magnesium, potassium, sulfur, and calcium. So those other salts and minerals that our body is starving for in our modern world. And so because we're actually doing the alchemical process with those minerals and not just sodium chloride, the end solution is very different. So we get the Dead Sea water, we put it through a resonant technology device, which effectively is a vortex with rotating magnetic fields around it. And when we put it through there, the solution turns white. And what's happening is those minerals that we're putting through there, their energetic state is changing. They're going into a higher atomic spin rate, and that has an effect on our body. Basically, it's altering the frequency of those minerals to a higher frequency, which allows our again, our energetic template or our pristine blueprint to interface with the field. So our biology to interface with the higher dimensional or pristine blueprint in a clearer, more coherent way. So a lot of us has like multiple interference patterns between our higher dimensional template, which is always pristine and unchanging, and our biology can be very compromised due to our environment. So as we purify and lift our cell membrane potential, if you will, then that reduces those interference patterns, and the almost really helps with that.
Fascinating. No, I love this stuff. With Shilajit in particular, David, I've seen it like in some like testosterone boosting supplements, and in the health biohacking space, it is becoming more popular for sure. In the general public, not so much. I mean, I'm sure more people are becoming aware, but could you please share that? You said it earlier. There's not all Shilajit's the same. So can you share a little bit about the red flags out there with some of the Shilajit out there? I know a lot of them they're loaded with heavy metals. Actually, that was one of the first things when Aaron connected us that I wanted to find out about your product. You know, have you tested for heavy metals? Could you share and give us a breakdown on how to find the right sources, which you guys obviously do, and how a lot of the Shilajit out there might actually be contaminated and you won't really get the benefits you're talking about here?
Yeah, it's really just checking where it's sourced from. There's a lot of Shilajit powders now that are coming out of China and other areas like Somalia, and a lot of them are mined at like sea level even. So they just don't have the same nutrient content. Even if they don't have any nasties in them, I presume not many of them have nasties anymore because, part of a regulatory process is lab testing every batch that you produce and checking for all of those benefits, like the nasties and the nutrients. So it's more of I don't think too much Shilajit would have heavy metals or E. coli or bacteria or anything like that in it. I know that there was a couple of issues with that, like a long time ago now, like 20, 25 years, and it got a bit of a bad name. But yeah, I would be surprised if that still exists. It's more just the nutrient
Got it.
concentration. Like I said, when I was testing them, I never found any heavy metal issues. But what I did find is fulvic acid's a good marker. Like I said, a lot of them would be like 8%, 9%. Then there'd be others that were like 44% or 68%. And that really came down to the location of where it was coming from. And a lot of that was the altitude. Yeah, I mean, if you're buying it, I've always found it's better to get a resin. Um, there's some really good resins in the market. I've always loved the pure black product as well. I mean, we don't believe in competition at Mana. We believe in collaboration. The
Love
more
it.
people that are getting Shilajit out to the world, better. Symbiotic is a great product as well. They're both pure resins in a jar. We used to sell it like that because of the taste profile. We actually spent years in R&D trying to find solutions for the taste, which we found, And that's why a lot of people will taste Manna and go, oh, there's no shilajit in that, because you can't necessarily taste it the same way as a pure resin. But that's because we've added 6 other natural organic ingredients to help more people be able to take that in. But there is 1,000 milligrams of pure shilajit resin in every sachet, which is a very high, generous dose. And then the other thing we spent 5 years in R&D on was getting that resin into a simple, easy to use dose. So we've come up with these amazing little sachets that you can just open with one hand that basically make your life easier and saves you time. And so getting the shilajit into that was a real challenge. And Ormus is known as like the escape artist.
Oh
So
yeah.
I've had Ormus in my lab in a glass bottle, standing upright, and I've wax sealed that glass bottle in beeswax like 3 or 4 times, and then in red cheese wax 3 or 4 times. So it's going to have like, 6 or 8 seals of wax on it. And I've come back from like being away for like 4 weeks, and the Ormus has actually found its way up out of the lid of the bottle, the screw top, and through the wax, and has like run down the bottle and is around the bottle. So
Wow.
it's not an easy thing to contain, but we've found a way to do it with the sachets, which is awesome. So it just means, because these substances, they're like shilajit's a great one. It's people are starting to learn about it, but they won't take it because it's like a pain to deal with, and it takes like 5 or 10 minutes to get some resin out and stir it around your glass, and it goes everywhere. And it still tastes like super funky, right? So we found about 50% of our customers just were saying like, we can't take it because of the taste. So that's why we spent so much time getting the taste so like 90% of people can enjoy it, and it takes like 10 seconds to administer instead
Yeah.
of 10 minutes. So yeah, so that's a huge part of what we've been working on as well.
I personally like the taste. I think you guys did a good job with it. It's hard to make shilajit taste good. And I'm going to ask you the question. I've been putting it in my coffee, and I don't know if I'm denaturing it at all because it's a hot cup of coffee. Is that not the best way to use it?
It's fine. I mean, I wouldn't suggest boiling it. So I guess, if you're making a coffee, often the water's boiled,
Yeah.
but then, it'll drop back down to, most coffees are around, I work in Celsius, so they're kind of, 70 degrees, and then they kind of drop down to 60 pretty quick. If you're adding the Manna at that stage, like just before you're drinking it rather than earlier on, it won't damage the enzymes that are in there. So that's the main thing, those triterpenes and the enzymes that are in the Manna. There is a life force that we maintain through our production process, which is really important to us. And through our regulatory process as well, we don't boil the product, or we don't increase the pH or put it through UV light. We've got, because ocean plasma is such an incredible natural preservative, that's how we're able to avoid going through those more extreme regulatory processes where you basically kill the product. So Manna does still have those active enzymes, probiotics, and triterpenes existing. So we wouldn't want to like expose them to too much heat, but coffee at like 60, 70 degrees Celsius or any other hot drink is fine.
That's good to know. I'll probably just end up putting it in my mouth and just consuming it to get the most bang for my buck. It's
You can do that. Just a word on that is like, because a lot of people do that, and we don't recommend it because it is so concentrated. Like with the 1,000 milligrams of Ormus and the 1,000 milligrams of shilajit that's in there, we literally can't get it any more concentrated. So if you do take it straight out of the sachet, and I still do it because I'm used to it and I love
I've
it, and
seen
I
you
get
do it.
when it goes in through the mouth, it's amazing. But I just put out a little bit of a warning with that. It's an extreme way to do it. If you add it to like, a big glass of water, it'll be
Okay.
much kinder on the palate.
Okay, understood. I kind of want to do it straight up though, just to see what it feels like. So maybe I'll just test it out personally. By the way, for those watching and listening, you could get Manna, these sachets. I believe each box has about 30 of them, so 30 days worth. Is that right? Yeah, you
Yes.
could get on auto ship as well if you go to the link down below. Use the coupon code KETOCAMP, camp with the K, you'll get 10% off your order. If you're following a low carbohydrate keto diet or carnivore diet, this is one of the most important tips. I see a lot of people who struggle with keto and carnivore, and the reason they struggle is because they are losing too many electrolytes. They're becoming mineral depleted. Every cell in your body needs minerals to function, to produce energy, which helps you burn fat and feel good. My favorite minerals and electrolytes are from Beam Minerals. These are fulvic and humic compounds that are bioavailable, that have over 70 minerals in them. It tastes like water. They're carnivore friendly. Let me explain why. There are no anti-nutrients in them. It does not break a fast. As a matter of fact, it could support your fasting window, and it's been a game changer for my health, and I recommend it to all my students. Head over to beamminerals.com. Use the coupon code AZADI at checkout, my last name, A-Z-A-D-I at checkout, to get a nice discount. Beamminerals.com, coupon code is AZADI. One of the things that I love about this is the conversation with the mitochondria, and I'm actually interested in learning more about your Dr. Beth McDougall, because I love the mitochondria as well. The mitochondria, the two primary fuel sources are amino acids and then also minerals. And of course, the body can make amino acids and proteins, but we can't really make minerals, so we're dependent on getting high quality minerals to fuel the mitochondria. And in the United States and also other countries, as you mentioned, David, our crops are so depleted, they're monocropping. They don't have the minerals that we need to feel the way that God designed us to feel, to thrive and to feel healthy, and to give the mitochondria what it needs, the building blocks. So something like this, which is a super concentrated micro minerals, what an amazing way, I think, to feed the mitochondria. And I think that's why so many people notice a difference right away. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you bring up a really powerful point, and it's actually one of the main reasons we're so passionate at Manna is we know within the product that we're providing those building blocks for life. And we're also aware that a lot of those are no longer in our diet anymore, and we do need to still get them externally. So there's a study out from the US Department of Agriculture that says in the last 100 years, there's 80% less minerals in our soil than there was 100 years. 80.
Wow.
80% less. And from my, a lot of research and deep inquiry into the mineral kingdom, into the periodic table, and into, as I said before, we're these sacks of fluid, and we need those minerals for all of our functioning, not only mitochondria and ATP, but for everything, for all of that intercellular communication, for all of the healing with the blood. The interstitium is really the largest organ in the body. And the bridge between the blood and the intercellular fluid is the interstitium. It's everywhere. And so we're remineralizing, re-neutralizing that interstitium, which is huge. So yeah, we're super passionate about it because we understand, if we don't have access to those building blocks, our biology will be compromised. And there's a Nobel Prize winner from last century, Linus Pauling, and he's famous for saying, all illness and disease can be traced back to a lack of minerals in the body. And again, it's once we come out of the energetic realm into the material world, the first layer, the first principles of nutrition is atoms. That's what our periodic table is. It's showing us the map of all of the atoms, or all of the elements, or all of the minerals. And we need all of those in our body. Some we need more than others, but our body, again, is the most advanced technology in the universe. So we believe by giving it all of those minerals from the plant and ocean kingdom, and then our body it's like honoring our body because it is so intelligent, it can then pick and choose what it needs and discard the rest. But if it's not actually, if that buffet of minerals is not available to that intelligence, it's going to be compromised. So Yeah, it's a really important point. It's something we're super passionate about is getting those minerals and those building blocks of life back into the biological system.
Beautiful. As you give the innate intelligence what it needs to do its job, and we're lacking, unfortunately, with the crops these days. I mean, 80% loss. That's insane. I believe
Yeah.
it, but it's just astonishing. And if we rely on the what's the word I'm looking for? If we rely on conventional farming, is what I'm looking for. You're going to be depleted with these minerals and these building blocks. I mean, in conventional farming, they do not have our back. They do not. They're not looking for health as the best interest. Their profits are the best interest here. So something like this is a great way to rebuild what's been lost. I'm curious, what are the most common benefits that testimonials you hear from people that start taking your products? What are the most common things they notice once they start taking it?
Yeah, straight away, people notice a difference in energy. Other people will notice like more focus. Other people will notice libido, like we spoke about before. It's incredible for upregulating collagen in the skin, in the
Oh,
tendons, the joints,
interesting.
the muscles. Yeah, so like beauty is also something that's really, really powerful. Um, yeah, but vitality in general. I mean, everyone has a different experience with mana. Some people, if they're still layering a lot of other dense frequencies in their life, may not notice as much of an impact. Like if, you're having 10 coffees a day and eating steak twice a day and drinking alcohol, you might not notice it as quickly. But people that are on like a keto diet, as an example, if you were to add a sachet of mana to your life, you're probably going to notice like significant impacts straight away. Other people that have been super deficient in those building blocks for extended periods will notice that electrical charge come online, and so they'll notice things straight away. As I've mentioned, like those sexual organs and fertility coming online, the mitochondria and ATP picking up. People will notice that if you start taking mana for like longer than 3 months, it starts remineralizing the bone marrow,
Wow.
because a lot of people's bone marrow is depleted because the fluids will pull the salts and the micronutrients out of the bone marrow to keep their charge. So after that 3 to 6 month period, we noticed that the body, the fluids have all of the nutrients that they need, and they can actually start giving back to the bone marrow that's been depleted over years. So
Fascinating.
once that bone marrow is it's almost like the energy storage in the body of those micronutrients. Um, so we're filling up the tank, if you will. So yeah, they're the main things: energy, brain performance, libido.
Yeah, that's interesting. For most supplements that I take a lot of supplements personally, but my viewpoint on supplements, I like to rotate them. I don't like to take the same ones over and over and over because then I feel
Mm.
like my body starts to adapt to it and then I don't get the same response. But there are exceptions to that thought process. So I want to ask you with something like Manna and Shilajit in your product, is this something that if you take long term, do you start to notice less and less benefits because your body adapting to it, and then you take some time? Should you take some time off and then bring it back in? Like, what's the best way to use this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do the same thing with supplements. I love to rotate them for exactly the same reason. I don't want
Yeah,
my body getting used to something and then not producing it naturally.
yeah,
So I think with the micronutrients in mana, it's a little bit different because, like you said before, there's some things the body still can't produce
mm,
with the conditioning that it has. I mean, ultimately, I believe our body can produce everything at different stages of cycles in our evolution. And I know friends and family that are producing things that science recognizes that they can't currently from sunlight. However, most of us uh, can't produce minerals and vitamins, like you said. So having that supplementation that we should be getting from our food, and in some cases aren't or can't, is really, really important because our bodies do require those building blocks and that charge daily, like all the time. So yeah, I think Mana is one of those supplements that we can take every day, long term, and we're only going to see more and more benefits from that
that
in
makes
all of
sense.
the areas that it supports. Yeah.
That makes sense. So what are like the goals for you and Manna? Let's say 5 years out. Do you plan, like, are one of your goals to get it into like major supermarkets? Like what is your plan? What do you envision the next few years for your company?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we want to get it out to as many people as we can. Uh, the biggest thing for us is we will not compromise on quality. So our costs are extremely high. Like if I was to share costs with you and other product manufacturers, most people would say like, "What are you even doing?" But for us, we're coming from a place of service firstly, and the back end of Manna is set up as a not-for-profit. So we're not actually looking to make money from this. It really is coming from a space of abundance, and most of the team make money externally from the project, which even allows us to come from that place of service even more so. And the reason I'm mentioning that is it's like we won't compromise on quality. We want to stay in our lane of like minerals, micronutrients. We also have, I mentioned earlier, that you can make Manna from gold as well.
Yeah.
So we have a product coming out this year that will have pure 24-karat gold in it, 5 milligrams in each sachet that can be validated in laboratory. We're also dividing out the two active ingredients in Manna. So we're going to have just straight 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝘎 and straight 𝙎𝙐𝙬𝙎. So we'll have those 4 product lines. It'll be Manna, it'll be 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝑎 for people that just want to take straight 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝑎 and don't want an improved flavor. They just want to go straight for the resin. And there'll be the 𝙎𝙬𝙍 component with the ocean plasma without the 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝑎 for people that just want those electrolytes and that superconductivity from the 𝙎𝙬𝙍. So we'll be providing those 4 product lines. The reason we're in Sun Life at the moment, which we love. 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝑎𝑚, who's the founder of Sun Life, is
Sun Life Organics is what you're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one right here in Miami next to me.
Yeah, beautiful. So if you go down there, you'll notice Manna in that store.
I didn't know.
We're exclusively with Sun Life based off with, I mean, we love Khalil as a brother. He's doing amazing things with Sun Life and he just inspires us with everything he does. And so we have an exclusive retail agreement with them. And because our costs are so high, retail just doesn't work for us. Like if we were to go out into other retail, because they usually buy it at 50%, we're underwater straight away. So, so yeah, online, we'll stay online and we'll keep refining our processes as much as we can to get the costs down for the end user. But as you're probably aware at the moment, like things are just so expensive. And because we get our 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝑎𝑚 from like above 16,000 feet, I mean, we employed 600 people last August, because you can only get 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝑎𝑚 from where we get it from in July and August, 8 weeks of the year, because the rest of the time it's under snow. So we employed 600 people last August to go and get 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝑎𝑚 for 4 weeks. And obviously to gather that and then go through the processing, add the flavoring that we have like a professor in Australia that does that for us by hand. We're going to ship things all around the world. We've got to manufacture it and then co-pack it into those sachets. It's a very time-consuming and expensive process that we're still kind of wrapping our head around all of that. However, it's our intention to make it as available as possible, as cheap as possible to people. So Manna at the moment is like $111 a packet, which is just, if you subscribe, it's $97. So it's like, $3.50 a day, basically.
Cheaper than a Starbucks frappe, and it's healthy. What a process, David. Wow. So you employ hundreds of people to go up there during the time where it's available. You said August and July, I think you said, to get as much of it as you can to supply for the rest of the year, because the rest of the year there's snow there. And then, of course, you have to do all the magic that goes into it. And then, oh my gosh, like that's respect. I have a lot of respect for you and the commitment there, because if you weren't committed, you wouldn't be doing that. You and your partner and just the whole team. So respect, first of all. I love that you're doing that. I also love the abundance mentality. You mentioned like other companies that make a good product too, like Symbiotica and a few others. And it's really, competitor or amateurs compete, world class collaborate, and they support each other, right? So I love the world class mentality that you have. I love all the effort that goes into it. So for those watching and listening, really at $3.50 a day is not that much. I mean, you could remove something from your lifestyle that's not causing you to be healthier. It's actually doing the opposite, and just swap it for this and get on that auto ship. It makes it even better. I can tell you one of the things I personally think most people will notice when they start taking this is the mental clarity. And the reason I would say that, just this is my opinion, because the brain has the highest concentration of mitochondria in the body. There are regions in the brain that have 2.5 million mitochondria in a single cell, and then other cells in the brain could have, over 1 million. But that's a lot. Compare that to other cells, a few hundred to a few thousand maybe. The eyes and the heart have a lot, but not as much as the brain. So if you're going to take something like 𝙎𝙐𝙎𝙎𝘎 and 𝙈𝙊𝙍𝙍 and Manna, and it benefits the mitochondria, I think the first thing you're going to notice is just clarity. And that is very important, because a lot of people struggle with brain fog. They walk into a room to do something in that room, and they forget exactly why they walked into that room. Like, it happens all the time. And that's a problem. Brain fog is one of the first signs of something that's going to be serious later on in life. And if you could do something to upgrade the mitochondria in your body, but especially the brain, it's so vital. And when you're thinking more clear and you have more mental clarity, it's going to help you with everything. It's going to help you with your job, your relationships, just being alone with yourself, watching TV, enjoying things. So I think the most important thing my audience will get once they start taking this is the mental clarity, especially for those who struggle with brain fog. What are your thoughts on that opinion of mine?
Totally agree with you. And that's one of the beautiful feedback that we get as well. And I mentioned earlier, there's actually a clinical study linking directly to 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝘎 as being a nootropic and helping with focus and reducing brain fog. So yeah, I think in combination with keto, because keto does that as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of the questions I had for you actually was like, by cutting out the carbs, I notice that reduces brain fog significantly. Is that from like the body having to digest the carbs, that process that creates like a slowdown, or is it something within the carbs itself that creates that brain fog?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a couple of things that's going on there. Number one, when you eat carbohydrates, obviously you raise glucose in the bloodstream, and then you raise insulin to take it out of the blood and put it into the cells. And when that happens short term, it's fine. It's not a problem. But what happens is when it's a big glucose response and a big insulin response, and there's a big decline. And with that decline, energy levels drop, right? So then you don't have that mental clarity, because there's like a blood sugar roller coaster happening. But also, when you lower your carbs low enough to enter ketosis, which for most people is under about 50 total grams of carbs per day, those ketones also do something really beneficial to the mitochondria, similar to the 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝘎 that you were talking about here. Ketones are cell signaling molecules that actually help the mitochondria produce upwards of 400% more energy. When we look at the electron transport chain, when you're burning sugar, glucose, the mitochondria are spitting out about 32 to 36 ATP, versus when you're in ketosis, it's about 132 ATP. And that's because, it's insane. That's because ketones stress the mitochondria, and we already established that stress could be good. Stress is the mitochondria to create mitochondrial biogenesis, so it creates new mitochondria. So I think it's twofold to answer your question, David. The fact that you're not getting that blood sugar roller coaster, blood sugars are going to be more stable, eating protein and fat and less carbs, and then you're going to get that mitochondrial biogenesis. So think about that. My audience is doing keto, so you add Manna to your keto diet or carnivore diet or even fasting. It's not going to break your fast, by the way. Think about how you're going to feel. I challenge my audience to give it a shot. Like, take it in the morning in a fasted state while you're in ketosis. I feel great with it. I really do. And I have a question back to you, unless there's some clarification you want on that. I'll pause and see if there's any clarification on that answer.
Yeah, it's a beautiful answer. Thank you. I love the scientific and the numbers. I love numbers. So seeing that it's like 4 times more powerful for that production process really makes a lot of sense to the energy that you feel when you go into a keto diet. It makes a lot of sense. And I guess one question that arose is like,
I want to interrupt the video real quick to share with you what I believe is one of the most important nutrients that we should be taking every single day. Most people are deficient in this nutrient, and it's responsible for over 400 enzymatic activities in your body. So what is this nutrient? It's called magnesium. Upgraded Formulas has this incredible product called Upgraded Magnesium, nanoparticle magnesium, which has the ability to penetrate your membranes and go right into your cells. There's a 99.99% absorption rate. Now, this is unheard of because with other magnesium products, you better believe it's not that high. I really believe just taking this for a couple of nights, you'll notice a big difference. So if you want to get Upgraded Formulas, Upgraded Mag, and any of their products, they also do some incredible hair mineral analysis tests and other incredible products that we've referenced before. Head over to upgradedformulas.com and use the coupon code 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝘽𝙎 to get 15% off your entire order. I'm going to drop a link for you down below in the notes of this video. Okay, let's go back to this video.
What's the amount of calories that you find throws you out of ketosis? Is it around that 50? Like if you were going to go and have 50 calories, does that throw you out, or is it lower than that?
It's more so the total carbohydrates, like the grams versus the calories.
Okay.
You could eat like 5,000 calories worth of fat, and you'd be in ketosis. So it's more about the total grams of carbs. So to answer your question, I found, and I've taken like thousands of people through different protocols, and everybody's different, of course. But for most people, if they keep their total carbohydrates under 50 grams per day, coming from non-starchy carbohydrates, they should enter ketosis. And of course, if you're dropping your carbs, you want to increase your fat and protein. Otherwise, you're going to feel hungry. So yeah, 50 grams. Now, somebody who has insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes or a metabolism that's just not functioning the way it was designed, they might need to be a little bit more aggressive and drop it like under 30 grams or 20 grams per day to enter ketosis.
Makes sense, yeah. So I mean, that's still quite generous. Like 50 grams of sugar, as an example, is about 200 calories, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's 50 times 4. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's still, you could still have some carbs and be in ketosis. And arguably, like you mentioned, you were surfing this morning before we hit record. The more active you are, the more wiggle room you have with that. Like I've seen some people get away with 70 or 80 grams of carbs because they're so active and they're still in ketosis. So the more active and more muscle you have more flexibility there as well.
Makes sense. Yeah, and for transparency perspective, in a sachet of Manna, there's just under 1 gram of carbs. We use coconut nectar as part of our flavor profile. And that has like between 3 and 4 calories. So yeah, as you mentioned before, it's like way under.
It's not going to knock you out of ketosis. And you know, my definition, I mentioned the fasting part. My definition of breaking a fast is when you raise glucose, because when you raise glucose, you start to lose autophagy. With 1 gram of carbs, like you're not going to get a glucose response. So for me, it's safe during a fast, and you could also test your blood sugars. I imagine you're not going to see a high glucose response from 1 gram of carbs, but definitely not going to kick you out of ketosis, and you're not going to do 50 sachets either, so you're going to be fine in terms of keto. Can you take Manna at night, or would that energize you too much? I've never done it at night.
You can. That's different for everybody. Like, we've got a lot of feedback from people that can't take it after lunchtime. Again, they're usually more sensitive people that really feel that energy hit. They mightn't drink as much coffee and things like that. So they really notice the biogenetic stimulant component of Manna. So it's different for everybody. We recommend taking it first thing in the morning. Yeah. So your body rehydrates, gets all those electrolytes, gets all those micronutrients, and it really sets you up for the day. Other people will take it all through the day. So just depends on the individual.
Makes sense. You know, my new morning routine is going to be, because I have a cold plunge and I'm getting a sauna in a couple of weeks. So my new morning routine is going to be coffee, Manna, cold plunge sauna, and then go work out. I'm going to feel like a rock star, bro. It's going to be fun.
You're going to be superhuman.
I'm going to be, watch out, world, watch out. I have a final question for you, David. Before I get to the final question, again, if you want to get Manna, go to the link down below, use Keto Camp at checkout, give it a shot for yourself. And also you're supporting somebody and a company that has the right heart, the right, the goals here are very worthy, and the heart, the mission is very admirable. I love the abundance mindset. You know, the fact that it takes so much just to even get this product out there. Like, these are companies that I believe we should support. And it's clean. It's going to help with your cells. It's going to help with your mitochondria. I personally use it. Like, we want to support companies that are doing things the right way, and that's obviously what Manna is doing. So check that out down below. Anywhere else in terms of social media you want my audience to go find you and check you out?
Yeah, we're on all the socials. We're on Meta or Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. The website's mannavitality.com. Manna with a double N, so MANNA vitality.com. Yeah, I don't spend too much time on socials, but yeah, we can be found there.
Yeah, we'll find your social media accounts and we'll reference it down below. Last question. You know, we just spoke about all the benefits of 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝘎 and 𝙎𝙗𝑚𝑖s and Manna and what it does for the body. There's another supplement that I love to take, David, and this supplement is also anti-inflammatory. It shows once you take it, like, there's an immediate response where your body produces oxytocin and dopamine and GABA and serotonin. Studies show it lowers blood pressure, lowers your blood sugars. I mean, it pretty much checks the box of every health benefit you seek. And the cool thing about it is that it's free. They call it vitamin G, and that is the practice of gratitude and feeling gratitude. And I want to ask you, what is your vitamin G right now? What do you have gratitude for today, David?
For existence. Like, honestly, from my journey, I've found that to exist is the greatest love, and it's the greatest gift we can ever be given, is like to have another moment or another day here, to understand what it takes for us to exist is like, well, it's actually overwhelming, right? Like, the amount of love and intelligence that constructs and comes together for us to be is the greatest miracle we can ever be exposed to. Like, that was probably the greatest thing I learned from studying like in-depth mathematics and physics, is the biological system, as one example, is so complex. And there's trillions of chemical reactions happening in every second just for us to exist. Like, you know, I can't feel my body at the moment. There's no pain. Like, everything's just happening autonomously with this extreme intelligence. And that's the same for all of us. Some of us feel different pain. We have different ailments, but all of those chemical reactions are still taking place, like, in a profound way. And as we have these building blocks in our system that we've been discussing, the minerals, the micronutrients, it allows all of those processes to happen even more seamlessly and in even more of an optimal, thriving way. So, yeah, just having gratitude for like the most simple things, Ben, is such a beautiful, like, that's how I like to remember that as soon as I wake up every morning, and be grateful that I can have a glass of spring water, be grateful that I can take a breath and get out of bed and go for a walk or go for a swim, that I can talk to people like yourself, that I can then participate in a project like Manna with, you know, beautiful people and access beautiful networks. So there's so much to be grateful for. And like this podcast as well, I feel you deeply. I feel like the symbiosis of your project and your mission. I know for myself, keto means so much to me and my experience as well. And the fact that you're sharing this with the world from the space that you're having such an impact on so many beautiful biological systems and so many people in the world. And the fact that, you know, you're bringing this back to gratitude at the end also shows me your heart and the space that you're operating from. And I totally agree with you. I think the vitamin G is actually the solution for most things, because once we do remember how incredible existence is and how blessed we are to be alive and to have a life, that as a starting point for everything else we do is, I believe, the most powerful thing we can activate inside of ourselves and remember inside of ourselves.
Beautifully said, my friend. It is a universal law. What you feed energy to expands. In other words, what you appreciates, and it grows and expands. And I love that. I love what you just shared. You're so right. It's just a miracle. It's incredible that we're able to just function and be around, do all these different things. It's like we have the soul in the human body, and we're in this meat suit, and the soul lives on forever. It's just so amazing. But I'm grateful for you, David. I'm grateful for Manna, all the intricacies and everything that goes on into making that product to help us feel healthier. Thank you so much for what you do and what your company does. And
if you enjoyed that conversation, be sure to watch this next interview I did with Dr. Robert Lufkin, all about heart disease, metabolic dysfunction, and how to burn fat.
Modern medicine is really treating the symptoms of them. These diseases, many of them share a common root cause that can be reversed